Hello again, I'm Greg Granger. Welcome to TravelOz. This week we swim with whale sharks on the Ningaloo Reef off the West Australian coast. Their arrival coincides with the spawning of coral, creating a food-rich environment that draws the whale sharks in on their annual migration. The two teams continue their road trip up the east coast of Australia, sharing their thrills and spills as they pursue high adventure. And we travel to Lake Eyre in the Red Centre, Australia's largest lake when it's full of water, high drama when it's bone dry. It truly is a desolate place out here in the centre of Lake Eyre, a heartless place really. Everywhere you look, an endless horizon, not a tree, not a bush, and all you can see is this endless plain of white gypsum and salt. And you can't penetrate it if you're looking for water. It's just so hard. No water and high temperatures. Temperatures up to 60 degrees in the height of summer. The desert that surrounds Lake Eyre is where Phil G lives and works.
I run camel treks out of the peak station up near the Denison Range. As a tourism operator, the drought doesn't really affect me that much. But as a small-time camel producer, the drought's significant. And for all the local pastoralists, of course, the drought's very significant. As we're walking along, the reptiles are all still there, but just numbers, they drop right off from a fauna point of view. The dingoes struggle. But if things get tough, dingoes get together in packs and then they start giving the stock a bit of a hiding. Kangaroos need to drink, dingoes need to drink, camels need to drink, but they can range a long way from watering points, you see, so they can get to water. Never take the country for granted when it's hot because it's unforgiving. And we lose people on a regular basis, visitors mainly, just taking risks.
One regular visitor who does take care is Lindsay Cupper. He uses his hovercraft to get out on the lake to film it in all conditions.
Well, I think most Australians don't realise just how extreme the conditions are out here, let alone people from Europe. They just would have no concept of what it can be like. Okay, I reckon you should go off all right here. We'll just tip her off and see what happens. You just tip it up and it should roll off, I think. Steady, steady, steady.
Lindsay's quest is to find and film creatures on this vast and seemingly lifeless salt pan.
There's a little bit of dragon here caught out on the salt flats, not his usual habitat. These lizards puff themselves up and then as you approach them they always present the largest profile towards you to try and scare you off. It's a bit of a vain hope with such a small creature, but they've tried valiantly. This guy usually lives amongst the bushes and grass around the edge of the lake, just feed on little insects and anything they can find really. They're pretty omnivorous. He usually is a much sleeker animal than this. It's surprising that out on this really hostile environment there are other little creatures, lots of little spiders that live out here. Just what they live on is anybody's guess. Sometimes on Lake Eyre you can actually see camels wandering across the salt flats or around the edges of the lake. Not what you normally expect to see in such an environment.
Further east, Lindsay travels to the remains of a light plane which crashed when the lake was in flood.
This is the remains of a Cessna 210 forced to land in the lake in 1984. Pilot and passengers survived, but they had a long, hard trek out. It took them 24 hours to get out to civilization. And the plane has remained here ever since, being corroded by the salt. Incredible corrosion built up on it. The wings and engine were removed by the people that owned the plane, but the rest of it is just gradually rusting away here. These conditions are pretty severe on man and machine. Clusters of salt built up all over it. Actually, some parts are really surprising. It's just how little corrosion on the parts where the wings mount. There seems to be no corrosion at all, but the rest of it's pretty sad and sorry sight. The seats are interesting. What were once soft, fluffy seats are now just rock-solid salt. Tail section seems to be just as badly off as the front. I don't know if someone's actually stolen the tail or whether it got sheared off, but the whole area's been encrusted once again with solid salt crystals. Amazing.
Drought is not the only condition that one experiences out here on Lake Eyre, although it is the one that prevails. Every 30 years or so, heavy rain in inland Australia sends floodwater sweeping across Lake Eyre, and it fills at times to the height of a 2-storey building. Now that flooding in turn creates its own human dramas. When water comes to Lake Eyre, I love it best. The water brings fish, marine life, and that brings birds. Pelicans come here. They come and they breed on the islands in the lake. You could have 200,000 pelicans all crowded together, building nests, laying eggs, eggs hatching, small chicks being fed, right through to chicks fledging. Some of the most spectacular behaviour with pelicans is when the pelican opens its beak, the chick will shove its beak right up into the parent's gullet and pull the food right out parent's gullet. Usually there's just not enough water to float a boat. It's so shallow. And I've come to the conclusion I'll need a hovercraft. It's the only way I can get to the islands, across the surface of the water, and I can get to the islands in no time. I've had a bit of drama out here on the islands. One trip I took all my camera gear out and then took a mate out there, and I went back to get more gear, and the hovercraft broke down, leaving my mate abandoned on the island.
And I expected him back within an hour or so, but an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then dark and no Lindsay, so had plenty of time to think about it through the night, what the scenarios may have been. I had food and water for probably 15 days, so I reckon I was right.
While I was stressing to the limit about how I was going to recover everything from the island, Dick was quite happily watching the behaviour of the pelicans and watching the movement of the water as the wind blew the shallow water backwards and forwards across the lake bed.
I had wonderful opportunity to view the pelicans and their behaviour and walk around the edge of the island.
And it was a 3-day wait before I could get the hovercraft repaired and get back out to rescue him. I've come out here to Lake Eyre to try and capture the essence of the place, the sheer vastness of it, the total isolation, the solitude, and just the harshness of it. It's just such an incredible place to be. It's so flat that you can see the curvature of the earth. But then, when you look more closely, there's the tiny salt crystals, the intricate patterns that they're formed by the crumbling of the crust and the movement of the crust of salt. The lake has just so many moods. In one day, you've got beautiful sunrises, the harshness of the midday sun is just unbelievable, the glare, you lose the horizon because the salt bed and the sky merge into one. Later in the day, as the shadows lengthen, everything changes, and then you get the sunsets over the salt flats, unbelievable plays of light on the formations on the salt, and the beautiful sky in the background. Sometimes after a beautiful sunset you can be lucky enough to just turn around and have an equally beautiful moonrise. It comes up as a great orange ball of almost like flame coming up over the horizon, and then it becomes so bright that the whole salt pan is lit up and shimmering.